What if your body betrayed you every single night, and no doctor could tell you why? The clock read 3:17 a.m. Again. Anna Parker stared at the red digits glowing like a cruel countdown against the dark. Her bladder throbbed with an urgency that felt disproportionate to how little she knew would come out. She threw off the covers with a resigned sigh, the familiar creak of the mattress echoing in her otherwise silent bedroom. The air was cold against her skin as she padded down the hall, careful not to wake Ethan. He had school in the morning, and the last thing he needed was his mom waking him up because her body refused to function properly. She used to think it was just stress. Then aging. Then maybe caffeine. She tried cutting everything, coffee, wine, sugar, even water after 6 p.m., but still, every night, without fail, her body jolted her awake 2, 3, sometimes 5 times. It was destroying her sleep, her mood, her job, and worst of all, her confidence. After flushing the toilet and washing her hands mechanically, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror. The harsh light revealed what she tried to hide from everyone else: puffy under eyes, skin gone dull, lips drawn tight in quiet frustration. "I don't even know who I am anymore," she whispered, tracing the deepening lines across her forehead. She turned the light off quickly, unwilling to linger in that reality. Back in bed, her mind refused to settle. She scrolled through her phone, hoping distraction would knock her out. Instagram showed perfect moms in perfect leggings doing perfect morning routines. Twitter was a dumpster fire of politics and outrage. Facebook was just photos of people she barely remembered from high school. Her fingers hovered over a health group she'd joined months ago but never posted in. Desperation cracked through the last of her pride. She opened a new post. "Has anyone else dealt with constant nighttime urination? I'm a 39-year-old single mom, relatively healthy, and this has been going on for a year. Doctors say it's nothing serious, but it's ruining my life. I just want to sleep again." She hit send before she could overthink it, tossed the phone onto the nightstand, and rolled over. She didn't sleep again. Not really. The alarm went off at 6:30 a.m., but Anna had already been awake, staring at the ceiling and counting cracks in the plaster. Ethan's door creaked open. He was already dressed. "Morning," he said, rubbing one eye, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "Morning, bud," she managed. "You okay?" he asked. "You didn't sleep again, did you?" Anna faked a smile. "Just a rough night. Let's get you some breakfast." While Ethan ate cereal, Anna reheated day-old coffee and took 2 ibuprofen for the dull headache that had become as routine as brushing her teeth. Her phone buzzed with a reminder: morning shift at Harper's department store started in an hour. She would have to fake her way through another day of smiling at customers while her inside screamed for rest. Ethan glanced up. "You sure you're okay, Mom?" "Yeah," she said too quickly. "Just tired." He gave her a look. He was only 12, but perceptive enough to know something was off. Anna used to be different. Before the divorce. Before her body started unraveling. Before she lost her job as a wellness consultant when chronic fatigue made her unreliable. Back then, she was vibrant, hopeful, full of health tips and green smoothies. Now, she was just a woman trying not to fall apart in front of her son. On the way to drop Ethan off at school, he reached over and squeezed her hand. "You should see another doctor," he said. "Maybe someone smarter." She laughed. "Is that your professional opinion?" "I'm serious," he said. "You're not okay, and I don't want you to get worse." Her heart ached with love and guilt. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll try." At Harper's, her manager was already scowling as she walked in. "You're late," he said. "Just by 2 minutes," she replied, forcing a smile. "Still late," he snapped. She wanted to scream. Instead, she nodded, threw on her name tag, and made her way to the registers. The hours crawled. Customers complained. Kids screamed. Her feet ached. Her bladder tugged. For times she had to abandon her post to run to the bathroom, and each time, she came back to a glare from management. During her 10-minute break, she sat in the back room, sipping water cautiously and scrolling through her health group notifications. One comment stood out on her post, "DM me. I had the same thing. There's something they're not telling you." Curious and a little skeptical, she clicked the user's profile, plant-powered 42. No photos. Just a bio, healing through food. Everything starts in the gut. She hesitated, then opened a private message. "Hi, I saw your comment. What did you mean?" The reply came almost instantly. Nighttime urination is often tied to hormonal inflammation, especially in women nearing 40. Docs don't test for it. Listen to the Elon Musk episode on the BioWell podcast. Changed my life. Also look up MIT's recent study on watercress, pumpkin seeds, and asparagus. It's all connected. Anna blinked. Elon Musk? Veggies? It sounded insane. But what did she have to lose? That night, after Ethan went to bed, she curled up with her laptop and searched for the podcast. The title read, "The Hidden Link Between Food, Hormones, and Bladder Health, with Elon Musk." She clicked play. The first 10 minutes were fluff, tech stuff, sleep optimization, but then it shifted. Elon said something that made her sit up. People don't realize how many of our modern health issues come from low-grade inflammation. It's subtle. It's silent. But it wrecks you over time. Diet is code. Your body is a machine, feed it garbage, it malfunctions. Feed it intelligence, it adapts. A guest expert chimed in, talking about phytonutrients, estrogen receptors in the bladder, and how certain vegetables can reduce nighttime urination by balancing hormones naturally. Watercress. Pumpkin seeds. Asparagus. These foods, the expert said, contain compounds that downregulate bladder inflammation and support hormonal stability. Especially for women over 35. It's not woo-woo. It's science. Anna paused the episode and opened a new tab. She searched, watercress hormonal health. Then, pumpkin seeds estrogen bladder. Then, asparagus anti-inflammatory urological. The articles were real. Studies from reputable sources. Why had no doctor ever mentioned this? She felt a tiny flicker of something she hadn't felt in weeks, hope. The next morning, she drove to the local farmer's market and bought a bundle of watercress, a small bag of raw pumpkin seeds, and fresh asparagus. At home, she made a smoothie with watercress and apple, roasted the seeds with a little sea salt, and steamed the asparagus for dinner. Ethan poked at the plate. "Why the green overload?" "Science experiment," she said with a wink. "You're the guinea pig." "I'm the lab rat," she said. That night, she still woke up, twice, but not 5 times. It was a small victory. But it felt enormous. The next night, just once. And on the third night, she didn't wake up at all until her alarm buzzed at 6:30 a.m. Her eyes fluttered open, confused. Then wide. "Oh my God," she whispered. She looked around. The sun was rising. The birds were chirping. She had slept. A full night. No interruptions. No bathroom. No tossing. No dread. Just sleep. She rushed to the bathroom, not out of necessity, but to check if it was real. It was. She stared at herself in the mirror. Same face. Same lines. But something had shifted. She touched her cheek and smiled. "It's working," she whispered. She felt like crying. Like laughing. Like dancing. Something was happening. Something was changing. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like her body was the enemy. She felt, maybe, just maybe, like herself again. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Anna Parker hadn't cried in front of another human being in months, but the tears came fast and hot the morning her manager pulled her into the office to talk. She'd only been late by 3 minutes again, this time because Ethan forgot his school project and she had to run back inside to grab it. She tried explaining, but he didn't care. "You've got to get it together, Anna," he said without looking up from his monitor. "We need dependable people on this team." That phrase, "on this team," made her want to scream. There was no team. Just underpaid workers grinding through every shift like ghosts in a department store no one liked shopping in anymore. Still, she nodded and said, "I understand," because the rent wasn't going to pay itself. When she stepped back onto the sales floor, she blinked quickly, forcing the tears to retreat. Then a customer asked where to find shower caddies, and she smiled like her heart wasn't slowly unraveling. That afternoon, after picking Ethan up from school, she sat in the car outside their small apartment and stared at the steering wheel for almost 10 minutes. She didn't have the strength to get out. The exhaustion was a blanket she couldn't peel off. Ethan noticed. He unbuckled, opened his door, then leaned in to look at her. "Want me to carry the bags?" he asked. She nodded, grateful. Inside, he set the groceries on the counter while she collapsed onto the couch. Her legs throbbed. Her back was tight. But it was her mind that felt the most broken. She used to have goals. She had a degree in nutrition and worked for a wellness company where she taught women how to take care of their bodies naturally. She believed in food as medicine. In movement. In energy and alignment and mindful living. Then the late nights started. The peeing. The insomnia. The fatigue. It crept in like fog until one day, her boss told her she looked too sick to meet with clients and maybe it was time to step back. Then came the bills. The overdue notices. The judgment in her sister's voice every time they talked. "Maybe you're just not taking it seriously enough," Rachel had said a few weeks ago during a phone call. "You think I'm not serious about wanting to sleep?" Anna snapped. "I'm trying everything, Rachel. Nothing is working." "You haven't seen a specialist," Rachel replied. "Because specialists cost money I don't have," Anna shot back. "Maybe if you prioritized your health the way you used to, you wouldn't be in this mess," Rachel said, and Anna hung up before she could say something unforgivable. She hadn't called since. Now sitting in silence, the air thick with failure, Anna stared at the empty wall across from the couch. Ethan quietly brought her a cup of tea and set it down beside her. She looked up at him. "Thanks, baby," she said. "You okay?" he asked. "Just tired." "You always say that." She didn't respond. That night, she cooked a simple dinner, baked chicken, brown rice, asparagus sautéed in olive oil, and tried to keep the mood light. Ethan told her about a kid in his class who tried to eat a glue stick, and they laughed, but it felt distant, like watching a happy scene in a movie you're not really in. Later, when Ethan went to bed, Anna checked her phone. The podcast was still on her mind. She hadn't dared to believe the veggies had anything to do with her slightly improved sleep, but she'd kept eating them anyway. She had also kept scrolling through posts in that same health group. She noticed a new comment on her original post. "Same problem here. Nothing helped until I changed my diet. Gut health is key. Doctors won't tell you that." Another reply read, "Check your hormones. Especially estrogen and progesterone levels. Bladder issues can be hormonal, especially after 35. She Googled local hormone clinics, but the prices were astronomical. Blood panels, consultations, follow-ups, it was more than her entire monthly paycheck. Her chest tightened with helplessness. She thought about messaging Rachel again but couldn't stomach the lecture that would follow. Rachel never struggled financially. As a nurse, she had good insurance and a steady job. She was the one who always did things the right way. Anna was the black sheep. The one who followed her passion instead of job security. The one who married a musician who cheated. The one who fell apart when life got too loud. But she didn't want to be seen as weak. Not by Rachel. Not by Ethan. Not by herself. The next few days were a blur of work, grocery runs, and carefully preparing meals with the 3 veggies she now clung to like lifelines. Watercress in her breakfast smoothies. Roasted pumpkin seeds as snacks. Asparagus at dinner. She even added flax and turmeric, hoping it might help. Every morning, she woke up a little more rested. Every night, she slept a little deeper. It wasn't perfect, she still had to pee once or twice, but that was a vast improvement from where she'd been. One night, she only got up once. One glorious time. She started journaling the changes. Day 7, only woke up once. Felt like a miracle. Ethan noticed I wasn't cranky this morning. Hopeful. The journal became her secret ritual. Her data. Her evidence that something real was happening. But then, a bad night hit her like a freight train. It started with a heavy dinner, leftover takeout Ethan had begged for. No veggies. Just fries, soda, and a burger she regretted even as she chewed it. That night, she was up 5 times. Her stomach bloated. Her bladder screamed. Her back ached. When the alarm went off, she felt like she'd been hit by a truck. She dragged herself to the mirror. I can't live like this, she said out loud. I need help. That afternoon, she called Rachel. Her sister answered on the 3rd ring. Anna. I need you to listen, and I don't want a lecture, Anna said. Okay, I think something's wrong with my hormones. I've been tracking symptoms, and it lines up with some of what you've talked about. The bladder stuff. The fatigue. The moods. I can't afford a doctor, and I'm losing my mind. There was a long pause. Okay, Rachel said quietly. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you called. Let's figure it out. Anna blinked back sudden tears. Really? Really? I know I've been hard on you. I'm sorry. I've been worried. And honestly, I've been having some of the same issues. Anna sat down. Wait, what? Don't tell anyone, Rachel said, half laughing. But I've been getting up twice a night lately. I thought it was just aging, but maybe it's something more. Let's both get checked. That night, Anna slept better than she had in months. Not because she didn't wake up, she still did, once, but because for the first time, she didn't feel alone. Someone believed her. Someone was in this with her. The next morning, while sipping watercress tea on the balcony, she opened her phone and replied to Plant-Powered 42, "Thank you. I think you just started something that might save my life." Then she looked out at the rising sun, hope curling in her chest like smoke from a fire that refused to die. The thing about hope is that it doesn't last long when it's built on unstable ground, and by the 3rd week of eating watercress and asparagus religiously, Anna Parker was starting to wonder if she had made it all up in her head, if the sleep she thought was returning was just her body's way of teasing her before snapping her back into the cycle of relentless exhaustion, because now she was waking up 3 times a night again and the pumpkin seeds didn't taste magical anymore, just bitter, dry, and like failure on her tongue. And the worst part was that every morning she opened her journal, stared at the blank space next to sleep log, and didn't even want to write the truth anymore, because it felt like proof that she was stuck, that this wasn't just some hormone glitch she could heal with a few veggies and a little willpower, it was something deeper, messier, and maybe even permanent, and so she went back to Google, Back to Reddit threads and wellness blogs and sketchy YouTube videos with homemade thumbnails that promised, the real reason you pee at night, doctors won't tell you. Even though most of those ended up being thinly veiled ads for overpriced supplements or exotic fruit powders that claimed to have miraculous bladder cleansing properties harvested from trees that only grew on cliffs in Peru, and still, she watched every minute, because when you're desperate, even snake oil starts to look like salvation. And that's how she found herself clicking on an ad that promised a free quiz to determine the root cause of nighttime urination based on ancient Ayurvedic diagnostics. She rolled her eyes but filled it out anyway, checked off the boxes for fatigue, bloating, irritability, frequent urination, disrupted sleep, occasional hot flashes, and a growing fear that her body was turning against her, and 30 seconds later, the screen flashed a message that said, "Your body is inflamed and hormonally misaligned. Click here for a free 7-day hormonal reset guide." So she entered her email and downloaded the PDF, which turned out to be mostly a detox program with instructions to drink warm lemon water at 6 a.m., chew fennel seeds after every meal, avoid cold drinks, and repeat affirmations like, "My bladder is at peace," while doing deep breathing exercises that made her feel ridiculous, but she did them anyway in the bathroom stall at work just to feel like she was doing something. Anything, because Rachel was still waiting on her insurance paperwork to go through for the hormone test, and Anna couldn't afford to wait, not when she was starting to forget things at work, customer names, register codes, even whether she'd locked the front door the night before. And her manager had already warned her once more that another mistake would result in a write-up, and she knew what came after that, and so she started carrying around a water bottle labeled Detox Flow that she filled with lukewarm herbal tea and squeezed lemon, and she forced herself to power walk every evening for 20 minutes, even when her feet screamed from standing all day. Even when Ethan asked if they could just watch a movie instead, because she told herself that discipline was the only way out, that maybe the reason she wasn't getting better was because she wasn't trying hard enough, that maybe she had started this process too late and her body was already too far gone, and then came the worst night of all, the one where she woke up 5 times in a single night, the one where she cried on the toilet at 3:38 a.m. with her head in her hands, whispering, "Please, please, please," to a ceiling that didn't answer, the one where she broke her own rule and took 2 Benadryl at 4 a.m. just to try and get back to sleep. Only to wake up groggy, swollen-eyed, and late for work, and when she showed up with her shirt inside out and couldn't remember how to void a return transaction at the register, her manager called her to the back room and handed her a warning slip without a word, and she stared at the paper and felt her whole body go numb, because she realized that if she lost this job, there was no backup plan, no savings, no second chance. And she felt rage boil under her skin, not just at him, but at herself. For not figuring this out sooner, for getting sick in the first place, for thinking she could solve a real medical issue with vegetables and good intentions, and when she got home that night, she tore out the pages of her sleep journal and threw them in the trash, yelling when the bag ripped and spilled its contents onto the kitchen floor, Ethan rushing in and asking, "Are you okay? What happened?" And she couldn't lie this time, she just sank to the floor and said, "I'm so tired, baby, I'm just so tired," and he sat beside her and put his small hand on her back and said, "It's okay to be tired, Mom, you don't always have to fix everything," and she wanted to believe him but all she could think about was how she couldn't afford not to fix it, how everything depended on her, keeping the lights on, keeping Ethan in school, keeping herself functioning just enough to hold the pieces together. And so she did what she had been dreading for weeks, she logged back into her old professional email account and wrote a message to her former boss at the wellness company where she used to work before she got sick, asking if they had any freelance opportunities, explaining that her health was improving and she was ready to contribute again, even just remotely, and she hit send before she could lose her nerve, knowing full well he might not even respond, and then she opened a spreadsheet and started logging every single thing she ate, drank, and felt: water intake, bathroom trips, sleep patterns, mood ratings, energy levels on a 1 to 10 scale, and it became her new obsession, her new ritual, something that gave her the illusion of control even as her body continued to defy her efforts, and she became an amateur scientist of her own dysfunction, printing out bladder health studies, watching webinars from functional medicine practitioners who said things like, "Your symptoms are not random. They are intelligent signals from your body, and she repeated those words to herself like a prayer every time she wanted to scream, and then one night she got a message from Plant-Powered 42 again. It had been weeks since their first exchange, but the message was simple: still struggling. I found something new. Want it? And without hesitating she wrote back, yes. Please. Anything, and within minutes they replied with a link to an obscure interview on a wellness YouTube channel, this time with a female urologist who talked about estrogen receptors in the bladder lining and how modern diets high in processed foods disrupt the hormone signals that tell the kidneys when to slow production at night, and Anna watched, entranced, as the doctor listed 3 foods shown in preliminary studies to reduce nighttime bladder overactivity: watercress, which aids estrogen receptor function, pumpkin seeds, which reduce inflammation and support zinc balance, and asparagus, which acts as a mild diuretic during the day but reduces nighttime urgency by clearing the kidneys earlier. And suddenly all the dots started connecting again, and she realized that maybe she hadn't been wrong, just incomplete, that maybe it wasn't about doing one thing perfectly, but layering habits that work together, and she went back to her spreadsheet, color-coded the patterns, and began rebuilding her routine, this time without shame, without guilt, with compassion for the fact that healing wasn't linear, that even if she had bad nights, she had tools now, and slowly, quietly, that fragile thing inside her began to flicker again, not full hope, not yet, but maybe belief, a belief that her body, with time, could learn to trust itself again. It came at 2:11 a.m., a sharp buzz on her nightstand that woke her mid-dream, and for a moment Anna thought she had imagined it, that her mind was playing cruel games again, because she hadn't slept more than 2 hours in a row in over a week, and every sound lately had become suspect, an echo of her own internal panic. But then the phone buzzed again, this time long enough to vibrate off the nightstand and hit the floor with a soft thud that jolted her all the way awake, so she sat up, sighed, and leaned down to pick it up, fully expecting a spam email or an emergency alert about the weather, but instead she saw something strange, a message request from someone she didn't know, the profile name, BioRebel7, no picture, just a gray icon and the words, Independent Researcher Systems Thinker Health Hacker, in the bio, and her first instinct was to delete it, ignore it, pretend it never happened. But then she saw the preview text, "You're not crazy. Doctors missed this. I can prove it," and her breath caught in her chest because it felt like someone had reached inside her brain and pulled out the one thing she needed more than anything else, confirmation that she wasn't making it all up, that she wasn't broken beyond repair, that maybe someone, somewhere, actually saw the pattern she was drowning in. So she opened the message and read it twice before fully believing it. "Hi Anna. I saw your post in the bladder health group. I've been researching hormonal disruption and nighttime urination for 3 years. It's not just a bladder issue, it's a systems issue. I've compiled over 80 case studies of women like you. I think you're dealing with a feedback loop between cortisol, insulin, and estrogen depletion. If you're open, I can walk you through it. No charge. Just want to help," and her fingers hovered above the reply button because every instinct told her this could be a scam, a setup, or worse. But something deeper told her this person was different, that maybe they weren't selling anything, just connecting dots that no one else had dared to connect, and so she typed carefully, "Why me?" and the response came instantly, "Because you're tracking your symptoms. That means you're paying attention. That's rare. Also, you're close to a breakthrough. Most people give up before they get there. Don't," and something in her chest twisted, a mix of fear, hope, and exhaustion, because she hadn't told anyone, not even Rachel, about how detailed her tracking had become, about the Excel sheet with 4 tabs, about the color-coded charts she'd made to track bowel movements, sleep disruption, hydration, food intake, and emotional spikes, but here was someone who seemed to know, who spoke in a language that felt both alien and familiar, and so she asked, "What kind of breakthrough?" and BioRebel7 responded, "You're in a pattern called midlife hormonal misalignment cascade. It usually starts with cortisol dysregulation, too much stress for too long, and that starts suppressing melatonin and disrupting insulin response, which then affects estrogen levels, especially overnight. The bladder is responding to the signal, not causing it. You're not peeing too much because your bladder is broken. You're peeing because your hormones are screaming for balance, and Anna reread that last sentence 5 times because it reframed everything. Suddenly her body wasn't betraying her, it was trying to get her attention, trying to survive in a system that was out of sync, and she felt her throat tighten as she typed, "Okay. I'm listening. What now?" And the next message was a PDF link titled, 3-Phase Rebalance Protocol, with a note that read, "No supplements. No BS. Just food, light, and timing. If you do this for 14 days, you'll know if it works," and she clicked it open to find a surprisingly simple plan divided into 3 sections. Phase 1, Circadian Reset. Which involved eating breakfast within 30 minutes of waking, walking outside for 10 minutes in morning light, no caffeine until after food, and 0 screens after 9 p.m. Phase 2, Hormone Stabilization, which required eating a protein-fat combo every 4 hours, adding cooked cruciferous veggies to every meal, and cutting sugar entirely for 14 days, and Phase 3, Bladder Signal Modulation, which included a very specific routine, 6 ounces of warm water with sea salt at waking, a small serving of pumpkin seeds and asparagus at 4 p.m., and a light, anti-inflammatory dinner with no fluid intake after 7 p.m., and while it sounded intense, it didn't sound impossible, and something about the clarity of it all, the logic, the rhythm, the lack of marketing speak, made her believe it might be real, so she replied, "I'll start tomorrow," and BioRebel 7 simply wrote back, "Good. Don't expect perfection. Just pattern disruption. Keep tracking. I'll check in 3 days," and just like that, Anna had a plan, a direction, and that night, even though she still woke up twice, she didn't feel lost, she felt like someone building a bridge with her own 2 hands, plank by plank, even if she had to do it half-blind in the dark, and the next morning she got up at 6:45 a.m., made a small egg and avocado breakfast, walked outside in her slippers to catch the morning light while sipping salt water, and something about the ritual grounded her, gave her body a sense of rhythm it hadn't felt in months, and by day 3, something shifted, not drastically, but enough for her to notice, 1 less bathroom trip, slightly deeper sleep, a sense that her body was not fighting her but cooperating, cautiously, like an animal learning to trust again, and when she got the next message from BioRebel 7, "Seeing any changes?" She was almost scared to answer, afraid of jinxing it, but she replied, "Slept 5.5 hours without interruption. First time in 9 months," and the reply came with a single word, "Progress," and then a follow-up, "Most people give up here. Don't. Day 4 to 7 are usually messy. Don't interpret that as failure. It's recalibration," and sure enough, day 5 hit her like a wall of fatigue and nausea, headaches, mood swings, irritability that felt hormonal in a way she hadn't experienced since her 20s, but she stuck to the plan, forced herself to eat the meals, took the walks, stayed off screens after 9 p.m., and Ethan noticed, too, because he asked one night, "Are you doing some kind of science experiment again?" And she smiled and said, "Sort of. Biohacking," and he blinked at her. "Is that legal?" And she laughed, the sound of it surprising even her, because it had been weeks since she'd laughed without it sounding hollow, and she said, "Yes, it's just trying to teach my body how to heal itself," and Ethan nodded and said, "You seem more like you," and that stuck with her the rest of the night, because she had forgotten what "like you" even felt like, and by the end of the first week, she had 3 consecutive nights of only 1 bathroom trip, a mind that felt slightly clearer, skin that looked less dull, and a strange energy that pulsed just beneath her usual fatigue, like her cells were waking up from a long nap, and when she opened her spreadsheet and charted the change, it was undeniable, even to her most skeptical self, something was happening, not magic, not instant, but real, and when BioRebel 7 checked in again, she sent her chart, and the reply came quickly, "That slope is everything. Keep going. Most of your symptoms are rooted in cortisol disruption. You're reversing that now," and Anna wrote back, "Who are you?" and for the first time, they answered more fully, "I used to be you. A mom, burned out, dismissed by doctors. I lost years chasing diagnoses that weren't real. I spent 18 months rebuilding from the ground up. I share what works. Quietly. I don't want followers. I want people to reclaim their bodies, and Anna sat there staring at that last line because it was exactly what she wanted, too, not followers, not sympathy, not even validation anymore, just her body back, her sleep back, her strength back, and so she doubled down, added 5-minute breathwork before bed, started journaling not just sleep but thoughts, fears, moments of gratitude, and by the end of day 14, she had the longest uninterrupted night of sleep since her divorce. 6 hours and 48 minutes, according to her cheap wrist tracker, and she woke up crying, not from pain, but from relief, because for the first time in almost a year, she felt like her body had finally exhaled, and so did she. By the time Anna hit day 17, the spreadsheet had taken on a life of its own, and she wasn't just logging her bladder trips anymore, she was tracking every detail, from sleep cycles to body temperature, to how many times she laughed during the day or how long it took her to fall asleep after lights out, and the act of documenting everything, no matter how small, began to give her a strange kind of comfort, like even if the world around her felt chaotic or she still didn't have answers from doctors or enough money to see a specialist, at least she had data, her own data, and that meant she wasn't just suffering in the dark anymore, she was observing, experimenting, noticing, and over time, that noticing started to reveal something unexpected. A pattern, small at first, but undeniable. Like on the days she ate cruciferous vegetables at both lunch and dinner, her sleep scores improved, or the nights when she turned off all screens an hour before bed, she didn't just fall asleep faster but stayed asleep longer, and it wasn't magic or placebo because it kept happening again and again, like clockwork, until she stopped questioning it and started trusting it, even when everything else felt unreliable. And it wasn't just the sleep, her mood was shifting, too, less volatile, more balanced, and Ethan noticed before she did, asking one morning while brushing his teeth, "Why are you always humming lately?" And she paused because she hadn't even realized she was doing it, hadn't noticed the music under her breath, hadn't felt the small but steady return of joy in the quiet spaces of her life, and when she checked her tracker that day, she realized something stunning. It had been 4 nights since she'd woken up more than once, and her longest stretch of uninterrupted sleep now clocked in at 7 hours and 12 minutes, a number that once felt like science fiction now staring back at her like a promise fulfilled, and still, she wasn't celebrating yet, not fully, because she knew the body was fickle, that healing wasn't a straight road but a spiral, and setbacks could come out of nowhere. So she stayed steady, kept up with her 10-minute morning walks, kept eating the watercress and asparagus, even when she was sick of them, kept avoiding caffeine after 11 a.m., and kept sending updates to BioRebel7, who responded like clockwork with simple replies, "Keep the pattern, reduce sugar next week, you're stabilizing," and then one day, out of nowhere, they sent her something new, a chart with colored zones, green, yellow, red, and a short explanation, "This is your adaptive range. Green means you're balanced, yellow means you're teetering, red means you're crashing. Most women with disrupted hormones live in the yellow-red band for years without knowing. Your current numbers put you in late green. That's rare. Protect it," and Anna stared at that chart like it was a map out of the darkness, and something clicked. This wasn't about finding a cure anymore, it was about creating a new baseline, a new version of normal, one where she didn't just survive the day but lived through it without feeling like her body was fighting against her at every turn. And when Rachel finally called with her lab results, Anna felt something strange, confidence. Not dread, because now she had language and numbers and her own metrics to compare, so when Rachel said, "The doctor said my estrogen is technically within range but low normal for my age," Anna asked, "Did they check your progesterone and cortisol too?" And there was a pause on the other end of the line before Rachel said, "They checked progesterone. Didn't mention cortisol," and Anna exhaled. "Then it's incomplete," she said, and she heard the surprise in Rachel's voice when she asked, "How do you know all this?" And Anna said, "Because I've been living it. And I found someone who's been helping me figure it out," and for the first time, Rachel didn't challenge her, didn't act like she was being dramatic or obsessive, she just said, "I think I need to start tracking, too," and that moment shifted something between them, not fully healed but no longer strained, and the next morning, when Anna sat down with her tea and opened her spreadsheet, she added a new tab titled, "Rachel," a place to help her sister track the basics, sleep, mood, water intake, bloating. And she sent her the file with a short note that read, "This helped me save myself. Let's use it to save you, too." And as the days passed, more changes emerged, not just physical but internal. Anna started standing taller, smiling at strangers again, making eye contact with customers at work instead of avoiding them, and even her manager noticed, pulling her aside to say, "Whatever you're doing, keep it up. You've been sharper lately. Less distracted," and she wanted to say, "It's because I'm not waking up 4 times a night anymore," but instead she just said, "Thanks," and went back to the floor feeling proud in a way she hadn't felt in years, not just for surviving, but for taking her power back, for fighting when it would have been easier to give in. And one night, while making dinner, grilled salmon, steamed broccoli, and sweet potatoes, Ethan asked, "Do you think you'll ever get sick again?" And she paused, wiped her hands on a towel, and said, "Probably. Everyone does. But now I know how to listen to my body before it gets too loud," and that answer satisfied both of them, and as they ate together, Anna felt something she hadn't in a long time, calm, not just in her mind but in her body, like every system had found a rhythm again, like her nervous system had gone from survival mode to safety. And when she logged her sleep that night, 7 hours and 22 minutes, 1 bathroom trip, woke feeling rested, she smiled, not because it was perfect, but because it was proof. And she scrolled back through the spreadsheet, week by week, noticing the slope of change, the gentle decline in disruptions, the increase in energy scores, and for the first time she didn't just see a body struggling, she saw a body healing. And that night, she messaged BioRebel7, "I'm in the green zone now. Thank you for showing me the way," and the reply came back simply, "You showed yourself. I just handed you the mirror," and something about that line made her tear up, because it was true. No doctor, no podcast, no miracle vegetable had done the work for her. She had done it, day after day, even when she was exhausted, even when she doubted herself, even when her own family didn't believe her. And now, standing on the other side of what felt like an invisible war, she felt stronger than she had in a decade. And as she turned off the lights that night and climbed into bed, she whispered to herself, "Patterns don't lie. I just had to learn how to see them." And she fell asleep not with anxiety, but with a quiet certainty that the hardest part was behind her, and the rest, whatever came next, she could face head-on, one tracked day at a time. The email subject line read, "You're invited, Women's Hormone Summit, virtual event featuring cutting-edge research," and Anna almost deleted it without opening because these things usually came with a $199 upsell and a promise to fix all your problems in 10 days with a gut cleanse or energy detox. But this one had been forwarded to her by BioRebel7 with a note that simply said, "Watch day 3. It'll change everything," and that was enough to make her pause, hover her cursor over the link, then click, and within seconds she was staring at a clean, professional landing page with headshots of doctors, researchers, nutritionists, and one woman whose face she instantly recognized, Dr. Leona Mathers, the female urologist from the obscure YouTube interview that first connected her to watercress, pumpkin seeds, and asparagus. And suddenly the summit felt more legitimate, not like another snake oil pitch but maybe an actual place where people were talking about what really mattered, about women's bodies and the invisible wars waged inside them. So Anna registered using her burner email just in case it got spammy, but it didn't. Instead, she received a clean confirmation with the agenda, speaker bios, and a clear schedule of presentations, including Dr. Mathers on day 3 with a talk titled, "The Second Brain, How Estrogen, Circadian Rhythm, and Bladder Signals Are Intertwined," and she marked it on her calendar with a red circle because something told her this wasn't just another lecture, it was going to validate everything she'd been through. And when the day finally came, she made sure Ethan was at his friend's house, put her phone on Do Not Disturb, brewed a cup of her now habitual herbal tea with a pinch of salt, and sat on her couch with her notebook open, ready to catch every word. And as the presentation began, Anna's heart beat faster, not with anxiety but recognition, because Dr. Mathers didn't start with symptoms or solutions. She started with a story, her own, of waking up 5 times a night in her mid-30s, getting dismissed by her male colleagues, being told it was probably stress or anxiety, until she dug into the research herself and discovered that the bladder wasn't just a container, it was an endocrine sensor, deeply connected to estrogen levels, melatonin production, and the cortisol feedback loop that governs when and how we sleep, and as Anna listened, it felt like someone was reading her diary out loud, every frustration, every sleepless night, every strange symptom finally explained in clinical yet compassionate terms. And then came the slide that made her breath catch. A chart labeled Triple Interference Pattern in Women Ages 35 to 55, showing the exact window of hormonal overlap she'd been tracking: low progesterone triggering cortisol spikes, those spikes suppressing melatonin, and low melatonin leading to nighttime bladder urgency due to overactive kidney filtration during sleep, and Anna felt her chest tighten, not with fear, but relief, because there it was. Visual proof, the thing no general practitioner had ever bothered to explain, and Dr. Mathers went on to describe how food timing, light exposure, and even emotional processing affected this loop, and then she said the sentence Anna would never forget: if you're waking up between 2 and 4 a.m. to urinate consistently, your body isn't just misfiring, it's trying to save you. It's alerting you to a hormonal rhythm collapse that, if unaddressed, can accelerate aging and cognitive decline. But if caught early, it's fully reversible, and Anna's hand trembled as she wrote it down, word for word, like a mantra, like a lifeline, and when the session ended, she didn't even close her laptop. She sat in silence, staring at the screen, tears sliding down her cheeks, not because she was sad but because someone finally said it out loud, on a platform that mattered, in front of thousands of women who'd probably been dismissed just like her, and within minutes her inbox pinged, BioRebel 7. Again, this time with no preamble, told you. It's not in your head. It never was. Welcome to the new wave, and Anna replied without hesitation, what do I do now? And the answer came quickly, now you lead. You don't just heal, you help others, and that idea both terrified and thrilled her because she didn't feel like a leader, she felt like someone who barely held herself together some days, but when she opened her tracker, looked at the transformation in her sleep, mood, and energy over the last 30 days, she couldn't deny the truth. She was no longer the same woman who sat crying on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m. She was no longer living in reactive mode, she had become proactive, methodical, disciplined, and resilient, and maybe, just maybe, she had something worth sharing, not as a guru or a coach, but as a witness, someone who could say, I've been there and here's what helped. And the next morning, she started drafting an Instagram post on her long-abandoned wellness account, just a photo of her tea and notebook with a caption that read, 1 year ago I was waking up 3 to 5 times a night to pee, exhausted, scared, and ignored by my doctor. Today I slept 5 hours straight and woke up rested. It didn't happen overnight. It took tracking, experimenting, and a lot of trial and error. But the biggest lesson? Your symptoms are messages, not malfunctions. You're not broken. You're just misaligned. If you're struggling, DM me. I'll share what I've learned. No fluff. Just real tools, and she stared at the screen for a long time before hitting post, heart pounding, because it felt like coming out, like admitting something vulnerable and powerful at the same time, and within the hour, 3 women messaged her, including one from New Jersey who wrote, I thought I was the only one. I've been waking up at 2:37 a.m. every night for months and no one believes me. Can you tell me what helped you? And Anna didn't hesitate, she copied her baseline routine, pasted it into a note, and sent it over with a message that read, start here. Keep a log. Your body will show you the rest, and just like that, she realized she had stepped into something new. Not just recovery but leadership, not just survival but influence, and that night, when she told Ethan over dinner what she was working on, he looked up from his plate and said, that's kinda cool. Like you're a scientist, and she smiled and said, sort of. Just one who studies patterns, and he nodded like he understood more than she gave him credit for, and the next day, when her manager asked if she wanted to pick up extra shifts, she said no, not because she couldn't use the money, but because she had something bigger to build now, something that mattered, something that might actually help women who were drowning in silence like she once was. And when Rachel called that night and said, okay, I started the log, Anna smiled and replied, now. We watch for the truth, and something about saying that out loud felt like closing a chapter, because for the first time, she didn't feel like she was chasing healing anymore, she was living in it. Anna had replayed their messages a dozen times, every phrase from BioRebel 7, every strangely accurate insight about her biology and sleep and stress patterns, and yet she still knew nothing real about them, not their name, not their face, not where they lived or what exactly had happened to lead them down this obscure and specific rabbit hole, and the longer they talked, the more she found herself wondering if they were even real, like maybe this was an AI chatbot with a really good database, or some anonymous collective of women swapping biohacks in secret. But then came the message that changed everything, a simple, "Would you be open to a call?" I think we've reached the point where a real conversation could speed things up, and Anna stared at it, pulse quickening, a strange mix of suspicion and excitement flooding her chest because up until now it had felt like a game of chess with a phantom, strategic, careful, distant. But now there was a chance to attach a voice to the person who had helped her reclaim her health, and part of her worried it would ruin the magic, that maybe hearing them speak would destroy the mystery, but she also knew she couldn't live in mystery forever, so she typed back, "Yes." "When?" and they replied instantly, "Tomorrow night. 8:30 p.m. your time. I'll send a private Zoom link. No recording. Just real talk." And that whole next day Anna could barely focus, her thoughts spiraling with possibilities, wondering if BioRebel 7 was an older woman, a doctor who had burned out and gone rogue, a former patient like herself, or maybe something even weirder, and when the time finally came and the Zoom link opened, her heart thudded in her ears as she waited, staring at the blank screen that said, "Waiting for the host to join." And then, suddenly, the window lit up, and there she was. A woman in her early 40s, with a calm, focused face framed by dark curls pulled into a messy bun, sitting in what looked like a home office filled with books, plants, and whiteboards covered in hand-drawn diagrams, and she smiled when she saw Anna and said, "Hi. I'm Mara," and just like that, the mystery dissolved into something strangely ordinary, but powerful, and Anna found herself speechless for a moment before blurting, "You're real," and Mara laughed gently, "Very real. Just careful with my identity. I've made a few enemies over the years," and Anna leaned closer to her screen, studying Mara's face, noticing the faint stress lines at her eyes, the calm intensity in her voice, and asked, "Why all the secrecy?" And Mara exhaled, looking off-screen for a second like she was choosing her words carefully, then said, "Because I used to work for one of the largest wellness supplement companies in the US. I was their in-house data analyst. I helped design some of the most viral female health protocols you've probably seen online. But I left when I realized we were optimizing for sales, not solutions. I started seeing patterns no one wanted to acknowledge, especially around bladder symptoms in midlife women. It didn't fit the marketing narrative. So I left. Quietly. And I've been doing independent research ever since," and Anna just sat there, stunned, because it made so much sense now, the precision of Mara's insights, the way she connected data to behavior to biology without ever selling anything, and Anna said, "So you've been building this alone," and Mara shook her head, "Not alone. But underground. I have a small network. We call ourselves patternists. We believe women's bodies are data-rich but misunderstood. Most of medicine only looks for loud signals, cancer, diabetes, acute issues. But the real story? It's in the patterns before the diagnosis. That's where change can happen," and Anna felt something in her stomach twist, not with fear but with awe, because everything Mara said resonated like a tuning fork inside her, and she asked, "So why me? Why share all this with me?" And Mara tilted her head and said, "Because you paid attention. 99% of people are so conditioned to ignore their body's messages, they don't even try to understand them. You didn't give up. You tracked. You asked questions. That's rare," and Anna nodded slowly, realizing that maybe she hadn't just been desperate all those nights in front of her spreadsheets, maybe she had been brave, and Mara continued, "Also, you're articulate. You can explain this in a way normal people can hear. I can't do that. I'm too technical. But your story, your transformation, it's relatable. You're exactly who I've been waiting to collaborate with," and Anna blinked, unsure what to say, because no one had ever called her articulate like it was a skill before, like it meant something valuable, and she asked, "Collaborate how?" And Mara leaned in slightly and said, "I'm creating a public resource, a free, open-source guide for women experiencing nighttime urination and hormonal chaos. It'll include food, tracking templates, light therapy basics, everything we've discussed. But I want it to be grounded in lived experience, not just research. I want your voice in it," and Anna's throat tightened because it was the first time someone had asked her to contribute to something meaningful without asking her to buy anything or sign up for a funnel, and she said quietly, "Yes. I'd love that," and Mara smiled, warm and approving, and added, "There's one more thing. I'm going to be presenting at a private research roundtable next month. 10 people. All with backgrounds in functional medicine, neuroendocrinology, and behavioral science. I want you to attend. As a case study. I want them to hear your story," and Anna's hands went cold, the idea of being examined, of speaking in front of experts, making her instinctively shrink back, but then she remembered what it felt like to lie awake at 2:58 a.m. night after night, begging for her body to stop betraying her, and how far she'd come since then, and she said, "Okay. I'll do it," and Mara nodded, like she already knew Anna would say yes, and the rest of the call passed in a blur of logistics, shared files, draft outlines, project timelines, but even after the Zoom window closed, Anna just sat there in the glow of her screen, pulse racing, mind spinning, because suddenly her story wasn't just hers anymore. It was a thread in a bigger fabric, part of a movement, a voice among voices calling for women to trust their own biology, and when she lay down to sleep that night, there were no racing thoughts, no dread, just a calm certainty that something extraordinary had begun, and when she woke the next morning, not from urgency but from sunlight, she felt it in her bones, the shift from survivor to storyteller, from subject to source. Anna's palms were damp as she stared at her screen, watching the countdown clock tick toward 0, signaling the start of the virtual roundtable Mara had invited her to join, and though she had rehearsed her story in her head a dozen times, written it out, even timed it with a stopwatch to be under 10 minutes, her nerves kept fluttering in her chest like a trapped bird because this wasn't just another webinar or anonymous chat. These were experts, scientists, practitioners, people who could ask her questions she didn't know how to answer or dismiss her experience as anecdotal, and the idea of that, of being minimized again, made her want to close her laptop and disappear, but then she thought of Rachel, who had just had her first 4-night streak of uninterrupted sleep after using Anna's tracker template, and of Mara, who had called her voice, exactly what people need, and of the message she'd received that morning. From a woman in Detroit who said, "Your post is why I went back to my doctor. Turns out I have low progesterone and no one ever checked," and suddenly this wasn't about Anna being perfect. It was about her being present, so when the screen blinked and the Zoom grid filled with faces, she took a breath and let it happen. First came introductions, a mix of doctors, researchers, a behavioral psychologist from Oregon, a sleep specialist from Colorado, a hormone-focused nurse practitioner from Austin, and Mara. Calm as ever, serving as the silent conductor of this unusual symphony, and then it was Anna's turn, and she felt everyone's eyes, kind, curious, skeptical, on her, so she looked straight into her webcam and began, "My name is Anna Brennan. I'm 39. For about 2 years I struggled with nighttime urination that disrupted my sleep almost every night. I went to doctors, I changed my mattress, I even tried hypnosis. Nothing worked. But I started tracking everything, sleep, food, stress, hydration, light exposure, and slowly patterns emerged. Turns out, my hormones were off. Specifically, low progesterone, flatlined cortisol rhythms, and an estradiol dip around day 21. But no one caught that until I did. I fixed it not with prescriptions but with food timing, mineral balancing, and environmental changes. And now, I sleep through the night about 5 times a week. I'm still working on full recovery. But I no longer feel broken," and she paused, half expecting someone to raise a skeptical eyebrow or interrupt, but instead there was silence, not the cold kind, but the heavy, thoughtful kind, and then Dr. Talia Shah, the endocrinologist from Stanford, leaned in and said, what was your protocol for flattening cortisol spikes? And Anna blinked, surprised, then answered, I started with magnesium glycinate before bed, added salted protein first thing in the morning, cut caffeine after 10 a.m. and used red light therapy during my follicular phase, and Dr. Shah nodded like she'd just heard a colleague speak, not a patient, and added, that aligns with a case I saw last year. We didn't track light exposure, though. That's an important addition, and that moment cracked something open inside Anna, not because she wanted validation, but because for once, she wasn't being treated like a fluke or a fringe case, she was being seen as a peer in discovery, and more questions followed. What changes did you notice with cruciferous vegetables? How long did it take to affect your wake cycles? Did you ever get full hormone panels done, saliva or Dutch? And Anna answered them all, sometimes stumbling, sometimes referring to her notes, but always grounded in her lived experience, and Mara let the conversation flow, only interjecting once to say, this is why we're here. The overlap between quantified self-tracking and female endocrine disruption is the next frontier. Anna's story is the blueprint, and the rest of the meeting unfolded like a think tank, deep dives into adrenal resistance, the neurobiology of nocturia, emerging studies on estrogen receptors in the bladder wall, and Anna found herself scribbling down terms to look up later, realizing she wasn't just contributing, she was learning, absorbing, stepping into a new version of herself, one where data wasn't something done to her, but something she created. And by the time the session ended and the thank yous circled back to her, one of the clinicians said, we'd like to invite Anna to help beta test our patient-led research app, and another added, she should speak at the summit next spring, and Anna sat there, stunned, her inbox suddenly blinking with invitations and follow-up links, and as the Zoom screen faded to black, she closed her laptop and sat in the quiet of her living room, unsure whether to laugh or cry, because somewhere between. Waking up every 2 hours to pee, and now, she had become someone whose voice mattered in rooms she never thought she'd enter, and when she texted Mara, what just happened, the reply came fast, you stepped into the room you were always meant to be in, and Anna sat back, letting that sink in, and suddenly all the weird choices she'd made, canceling social plans to protect her sleep, logging her urine volume like a scientist, turning down extra shifts at work so she could keep healing. They didn't feel obsessive anymore, they felt intentional, like the choices of someone reclaiming her life one detail at a time, and that night, when she lay down in bed, she did it not as someone trying to fix herself, but as someone finally in rhythm with her own biology, and when she slept through the night and woke just before her alarm to the first bird song of morning, she whispered, stillness isn't luck. It's the reward for listening, and went into her day not just rested, but radiant. It started with a comment on her latest post, a short video where Anna had shared the basics of her nighttime routine, red light at sunset, warm magnesium tea with sea salt, no screens after 8:30, a mix of asparagus and pumpkin seeds at dinner, all things that had helped her stop waking up to pee at 2:41 every single night, and someone replied, you're not a doctor. This is dangerous, and she stared at that sentence longer than she meant to, rereading it, trying to understand why it hit so hard, because she hadn't claimed to be a doctor, hadn't promised cures, hadn't sold anything, just shared what had worked for her and offered it up as a starting point for anyone stuck in the same cycle of exhaustion and confusion, but the message had weight, like it carried all the years of doubt and dismissal she'd faced before, doctors who told her to drink less water, family who said it was probably stress, friends who nodded politely but changed the subject, and it cracked something open inside her she thought had already healed, and for the rest of the day she couldn't shake it. Even as more positive comments poured in, even as women messaged to say her routine had helped them sleep better, eat differently, ask better questions at their doctor appointments, still, that one line kept echoing, you're not a doctor, like a verdict, like a wall, and that night, her old anxiety returned, just a whisper, but enough to make her heart pound and her bladder twitch, and for the first time in weeks she woke up twice, once at 2:26, then again at 4:13, and lay staring at the ceiling. Ashamed and annoyed, wondering if she'd spoken too soon, if she'd stretched too far outside her lane, if maybe the commenter was right, and in the dim silence of her room the doubt grew louder, feeding on her fatigue, and she almost deleted the post entirely the next morning, but something stopped her, an email, short and raw, from a woman in Portland who wrote, your video made me cry. I thought I was crazy. I've been logging my wake times too, and they're almost identical to yours. No one's ever said it could be hormonal. I've printed your routine and I'm trying it. Thank you for giving this a name, and Anna sat with that, tears springing to her eyes, not because she was overwhelmed but because she realized the real danger wasn't in speaking up, it was in staying silent, and so she didn't delete the post, didn't back down, but she also didn't respond with fire or defense. Instead she added a pinned comment, "This isn't medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a woman who tracked her body obsessively and found patterns that gave her life back. If anything here helps you, I'm grateful. If it doesn't, I hope you find something that does." But let's not confuse silence with safety, and within minutes, the tone of the comments shifted, more women chimed in with their own stories, their own wake times, their own theories, and soon the thread became something else entirely. Not a fight, but a forum, not about Anna at all, but about what happens when women start listening to their bodies and each other, and over the next week, Mara warned her, this is what always happens, first they ignore you, then they mock you, then they attack you, and then you win, and Anna smiled at the quote, letting it steal her spine, but part of her still flinched each time a dismissive comment popped up, and so she doubled down, not on fighting back, but on rooting deeper into her own integrity, checking her sources, tightening her language, making sure everything she shared came from both lived experience and real, research-backed understanding, and when she recorded her next video, this one about melatonin suppression from nighttime screen exposure, she opened with, "I'm not here to diagnose anyone. I'm just here to shine a flashlight on a pattern you might be missing. Because I missed it for years, and it almost broke me," and that authenticity resonated more than anything else, and her following grew, not in viral bursts, but steady, real, and filled with women who were tired of being dismissed, tired of peeing 3 times a night, tired of being told it was just aging or anxiety or overthinking, and in every message Anna read the same desperation she had once felt. And it made her even more committed to staying in the fight, even when it got messy, even when she felt imposter syndrome whispering, "You're not qualified," because the truth was, she was qualified in the most essential way, she had lived through the fire, walked out on the other side, and left markers for others to follow, and Mara reminded her of that in a late-night voice memo, saying, "You're doing sacred work. And sacred work always attracts resistance. Just don't let it change your center," and Anna played that message back every time she felt shaken, and one afternoon, Rachel called, agitated, saying, "I tried bringing your cortisol chart to my doctor, and she rolled her eyes. Said I was reading too many blogs," and Anna had to fight the urge to drive to that clinic and shake someone, but instead she said gently, "That's why we track. Not for them. For us. So we know what's real even when they don't see it," and Rachel got quiet before whispering, "Thanks. I needed that," and Anna knew in that moment that this resistance wasn't just out there. It lived inside everyone who had ever been gaslit by the system, and undoing that damage would take time, patience, and a kind of courage that didn't always roar but whispered, "Keep going," and so she did, adding new layers to her tracker, experimenting with adaptogens, journaling her emotions nightly, watching as her body continued to stabilize even under stress, and when she had another full week of uninterrupted sleep, 7 nights in a row for the first time in almost 3 years, she celebrated not with fanfare, but by emailing her updated routine to her little community list with the subject line, "One small win," and the responses poured in like confetti, women cheering her on, sharing their own wins, their setbacks, their discoveries, and Anna felt something shift again, not in her body, but in her identity. She was no longer just healing, she was holding space for others to heal too, and even when the resistance came, as it always would, it no longer stopped her, because she knew where she stood, and that was everything. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The crisp scent of antiseptic filled the small clinic room as Anna sat quietly, rolling up her sleeve for the blood draw she had scheduled weeks ago. This was different from her usual home hormone tests. This was a full panel ordered by Dr. Talia Shah, the Stanford endocrinologist who had invited her into the research roundtable. Anna felt the familiar flutter of nerves. Would these results validate what she had already pieced together from symptoms and saliva tests, or would they complicate her story? The phlebotomist's practiced hands barely registered as the needle slid in, and Anna closed her eyes, breathing slowly to steady her racing thoughts. She thought back to the countless nights spent tracking every symptom, every restless movement, every sip of water, every bite of food, like an amateur detective chasing clues scattered across months of sleeplessness and frustration. She had learned to read her body's signals like a complex language, but blood work was the Rosetta Stone. Raw, clinical data that could either confirm her self-study or upend it entirely. When she received the emailed results days later, Anna found a quiet corner of her favorite coffee shop and sat down, laptop open. Numbers and charts swam before her eyes: cortisol rhythms, estradiol levels, progesterone ratios, thyroid function markers. But what stood out immediately were the patterns Mara and Dr. Shah had hinted at during the roundtable: elevated nighttime cortisol, suboptimal progesterone during the luteal phase, and a subtle but telling imbalance in her mineral panel, particularly magnesium and potassium. Her cortisol was spiking in the evening hours, the time when her body should be winding down, instead of ramping up. That explained why sleep had felt so elusive, why she woke gasping at 2:41 a.m. every night. Progesterone, often called the calming hormone, was low, robbing her body of its natural sedative effect, leaving her vulnerable to restless nights and urgent bathroom trips. And her magnesium was borderline deficient, which meant her muscles, bladder included, were more prone to spasms. The picture was clear: her body was sending her signals of distress, but those signals had been drowned out by stress, poor sleep hygiene, and years of ignoring her own needs. Armed with this knowledge, Anna crafted a new plan in consultation with Mara and Dr. Shah, one that combined diet, supplements, light therapy, and mindfulness, but tailored to her unique biochemistry rather than generic advice. She increased her intake of magnesium-rich foods like spinach, pumpkin seeds, and Swiss chard, timed her calcium consumption to avoid competing with magnesium absorption, and added a low-dose transdermal progesterone cream during the luteal phase to restore balance. She doubled down on evening light therapy, using a red lamp that mimicked sunset hues, to recalibrate her circadian rhythm and calm her HPA axis. And most importantly, she began a nightly ritual of deep breathing and progressive muscle relaxation to lower her sympathetic nervous system activation before bed. The first few nights felt strange, almost foreign, as if her body was learning a new language of rest, but slowly the fog lifted. She noticed the 2:41 a.m. wake-up no longer came like a sharp jab but as a faint whisper she could resist. She slept more deeply, waking feeling restored instead of drained. Her mood stabilized, anxiety ebbed. As days turned into weeks, Anna kept detailed notes, charting her progress alongside her labs. When she shared the new results with Mara, they both marveled at the steady improvements, a testament to the power of pattern recognition paired with personalized intervention. But the journey wasn't just physiological, it was profoundly emotional. Every blood draw, every lab report was a reminder of the battle she had fought within herself, the years spent doubting, the nights spent feeling powerless. Now, with data on her side, she was rewriting the narrative from victim to victor. She realized healing was not linear. There were days when the urgency returned, or when stress threatened to unravel her gains, but with knowledge and community, she was equipped to meet those moments with resilience. One afternoon, while reflecting on her transformation, Anna penned a message to her growing online group: "Healing is a mosaic, made of many small pieces. Each pattern, each test, each habit is a tile in the bigger picture. Keep trusting the process." The responses flooded in: stories of setbacks and breakthroughs, questions about labs and lifestyle tweaks, offers of support. Anna felt herself becoming more than a patient or a blogger. She was a guide, a beacon for women lost in the maze of nighttime urination and hormonal confusion. Her journey had become a shared journey, and that was the greatest healing of all. The late spring sun filtered through the blinds of Anna's apartment as she sat at her cluttered desk, surrounded by stacks of notebooks, printed research articles, and her ever-present laptop humming softly. Today was different. After months of tracking, testing, tweaking supplements, and battling self-doubt, Anna was on the verge of something she could feel deep in her bones, a breakthrough. It wasn't a dramatic lightning strike but a subtle shift, the kind that makes you lean in closer and say, wait, this changes everything. She sipped her chamomile tea, warmed by the soft glow of a red light lamp beside her. Over the past few weeks, her nighttime awakenings had reduced dramatically, no longer the jarring disruptions at 2:41 or 3:17 a.m., but sometimes a brief stirring that dissolved back into deep sleep. Her bladder no longer felt like a ticking time bomb, the constant urgency that had haunted her was finally loosening its grip. Her hormone levels, monitored regularly through saliva and blood tests, showed improvement, progesterone rising steadily in the luteal phase, cortisol following a more natural diurnal rhythm. And yet, what struck her most was the new pattern she had uncovered by layering her data sets in an app Mara had helped develop, a clear connection between specific vegetable intake and bladder calmness. It was an unexpected twist. One afternoon, while cooking dinner, she tossed fresh asparagus into her skillet. She remembered a passing comment from a journal article about asparagus's high asparagine content and its anti-inflammatory properties. Intrigued, she began noting how nights after asparagus dinners felt easier, how the urgent calls of the bladder quieted more quickly. She tested it systematically, swapping in broccoli and then kale on alternate nights, each showing distinct effects on her sleep quality and urinary urgency. She cross-referenced this with her magnesium and potassium intake, hypothesizing that the synergistic effect of these minerals in those veggies might be stabilizing her smooth muscle function, including the bladder. Mara's words echoed in her mind, sometimes the smallest things hold the biggest keys. Then came a weekend trip with Rachel, a friend who had been through her own battle with nocturia and was now experimenting with dietary adjustments. Over coffee at a sunlit cafe, Rachel marveled, "I never thought veggies would make this much difference." "I mean, asparagus? Really?" Anna grinned, "I know. It sounds odd, but it's all about what feeds the body's biochemistry, not just what fills the plate." Their conversation spiraled into sharing recipes, supplement brands, light therapy schedules, and mindfulness techniques, a toolkit built from trial, error, and determination. When Anna returned home, she pored over more research and began creating what she called the Elon Musk Veggie Protocol, as a nod to Musk's public enthusiasm for innovation, health hacks, and nutrient-rich diets. The protocol centered on 3 veggies: asparagus for its anti-inflammatory and mineral profile, broccoli for its antioxidant sulforaphane content and estrogen metabolism support, and spinach for magnesium and potassium density to aid muscle relaxation and electrolyte balance. She refined the timing of consumption too, favoring evening meals to prepare the body for restful sleep and calm bladder function. One night, after a particularly satisfying meal of roasted asparagus and steamed broccoli with a side of garlic sautéed spinach, she slipped into bed feeling a wave of calm she hadn't known in years. Her mind was quiet, her body relaxed, and the usual creeping urgency never came. She slept straight through until dawn. It was a small victory, but monumental. Energized, Anna shared the protocol with her online community, framing it carefully as an experiment and inviting others to try it and report back. The responses were immediate and enthusiastic, women from across the country messaging about reduced nocturnal urgency, improved sleep, and a newfound sense of control. Even Mara was impressed, calling it a game changer in their ongoing work to decode female bladder health through diet and lifestyle. Yet, Anna knew this breakthrough was not just about vegetables or supplements, it was about reclaiming agency over a body that had felt alien and uncooperative for far too long. It was about transforming despair into curiosity, isolation into connection. And as the weeks rolled on, Anna found herself growing more confident, not just in the science but in her voice, her purpose, and her ability to inspire others to listen to their bodies and rewrite their own stories. When she stood before the crowd at the virtual Women's Health Summit, invited as a keynote speaker, she didn't just share data or personal anecdotes, she told a story of resilience, of persistence, and of the surprising power found in everyday choices. Her closing words lingered long after she signed off. What if the key to healing lies not in complex treatments or expensive procedures, but in the humble vegetables on our plates and the rhythms we choose to honor? What if the biggest breakthroughs come when we stop fighting our bodies and start partnering with them? As the applause echoed through her headphones, Anna smiled, knowing this was just the beginning. The glow of her laptop screen was soft in the dim light of Anna's living room as she logged into the weekly group call with her growing community. What had started as a handful of women sharing tips on managing nighttime urination had blossomed into a vibrant collective bound by shared struggles and mutual support. Tonight's call was buzzing with energy, voices from all over the country, each carrying a piece of the puzzle, each eager to connect, to be heard, to heal together. Anna felt a swell of gratitude as she looked at the mosaic of faces on her screen: teachers, nurses, artists, moms, retirees, all united by the once taboo topic they refused to let silence govern anymore. As the moderator, Anna opened with the familiar question she had come to cherish. What's one thing that keeps you moving forward, even when the nights are long and the journey feels lonely? Responses poured in. Jessica, a school counselor from Ohio, spoke about her ritual of lighting a candle before bed to create a moment of peace. Maria, a single mom from Texas, shared how tracking her food and hydration helped her predict and manage urgent nights. Each story was a thread woven into a tapestry of resilience and hope. Anna listened deeply, occasionally nodding, her own struggles echoing in their words but feeling lighter knowing she wasn't alone. They discussed the Elon Musk Veggie protocol, with women reporting varied but promising results: reduced urgency, longer sleep stretches, less anxiety around bathroom visits. The group celebrated these wins with virtual high fives and shared recipes, while also acknowledging setbacks and the messy reality of healing. Mara joined the call unexpectedly, her calm presence grounding the conversation. She reminded everyone, healing isn't linear. It's okay to have bad nights. The goal isn't perfection but progress. The group responded with gratitude, some admitting that Mara's words lifted the guilt they carried. As the hour passed, the conversation turned to the emotional toll nocturia exacted, how it fractured confidence, intimacy, and sense of self. Anna shared her own fears of vulnerability, the shame she once felt discussing something so intimate, and how community had transformed that isolation into empowerment. One member, Elaine from Florida, spoke about rekindling her relationship with her husband after opening up about her condition, a breakthrough that made the nights feel less lonely. The power of connection was palpable. Anna had also recently introduced a monthly newsletter, Night Light, filled with science-backed insights, recipes, and mindfulness exercises, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Women wrote to say the newsletter was a lifeline, a reminder that they were seen and supported. She carefully curated each issue to balance hard science with empathy, demystifying complex concepts while honoring the emotional journey. Outside the digital world, Anna's community inspired real-life meetups. A small group in Portland arranged a weekend retreat focused on nutrition, light therapy, and stress reduction. Photos flooded the group chat, smiling faces gathered around campfires, sharing meals rich in asparagus, broccoli, and spinach, practicing yoga at sunrise, journaling under towering pines. Anna wished she could be there but felt a deep connection nonetheless. These gatherings embodied the heart of what she had set out to create, not just a place for information, but a sanctuary for healing. Meanwhile, Anna continued her collaboration with Dr. Shah and Mara on a pilot study aiming to better understand nocturia in premenopausal women. They were recruiting volunteers from the community, offering free hormone testing and personalized feedback. Anna's role was crucial. Not only did she help translate medical jargon into accessible language, but she also bridged the gap between clinical research and lived experience. The first round of data was promising, showing consistent patterns linking cortisol dysregulation and progesterone deficiency with nocturnal symptoms, validating much of what Anna had observed personally and shared online. The team planned to publish their findings later in the year, hopeful it would shift how doctors approached women's urinary health, moving away from dismissiveness toward empathy and action. Yet despite the progress, Anna knew there was more work ahead. Stigma lingered around bladder issues, and many women still suffered in silence. That's why she launched a campaign called Speak Your Night, encouraging women to break the taboo through storytelling and advocacy. The campaign included social media challenges, local workshops, and partnerships with health organizations, all designed to amplify voices and change narratives. One viral video featured Anna recounting her darkest nights and how she found light through community and science. The comments section was flooded with stories of pain and hope, a chorus that defied shame. As spring turned to summer, Anna reflected on how far she had come, from isolated nights of frustration to leading a movement that was transforming lives. She understood now that healing was never just about one person's body, it was about collective courage and the willingness to hold space for each other's pain and triumphs. The community was more than a support group, it was a force, a beacon for change in a world too long silent about women's health. And Anna felt honored to stand at its center, not as a savior but as one of many voices rising together. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? She reminded her online followers, knowing that every story shared was a step toward healing, every connection a stitch in the fabric of resilience. Despite the growing community and the promising results of her protocol, Anna found herself wrestling with shadows she hadn't anticipated, doubts that gnawed at her confidence and cast long, uneasy lines across her progress. It started subtly, a quiet whisper during late-night reflections: what if the improvements were just placebo? What if she was fooling herself and others? The weight of responsibility she felt for her community's hopes and trust pressed heavily on her. The online messages praising her breakthroughs felt incredible but also fragile, like delicate glassware that might shatter with one wrong move. Anna had always been her harshest critic, but now the stakes were higher. When a follower wrote asking if her protocol was scientifically proven or just anecdotal, Anna's heart sank. She wanted to give a definitive answer, but the reality was nuanced, the pilot study was ongoing, and science was slow, cautious. The impatience she felt for certainty clashed with the complexity of the process. She spent hours revisiting research papers, poring over studies on hormones, bladder function, nutrition, and circadian biology. The more she read, the clearer it became how little definitive knowledge existed about women's nocturia, how much had been overlooked or minimized by mainstream medicine. That frustration fueled her determination but also deepened the self-doubt: was she overstepping? Was she qualified to guide others? The shadows grew darker when a well-meaning but critical comment appeared under one of her posts, questioning her medical credentials and calling the Elon Musk Veggie protocol a gimmick. The comment sparked a flurry of supportive responses but also stirred anxiety in Anna. For the first time, she considered the possibility that her journey might provoke backlash, skepticism, or dismissal. She realized healing wasn't just about physical symptoms but about confronting societal attitudes toward women's health and the fear of being silenced. That night, she sat alone, scrolling through messages, tears welling as the familiar ache of isolation returned. Yet in that moment of vulnerability, Anna remembered a line from her therapist: doubt is the shadow of growth, it means you're stepping into new territory. She breathed deeply, reminding herself that progress often felt uncomfortable and uncertain. The next morning, she wrote a candid post titled, "Embracing Doubt, Why Questioning Ourselves is Part of Healing." She shared her fears openly, inviting her community to join her in holding space for uncertainty without letting it paralyze them. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from women who admitted they too wrestled with doubt, who found strength in Anna's honesty. It was a reminder that vulnerability was not weakness but connection. Around this time, Anna's collaboration with Dr. Shah faced a challenge. New data from the pilot study revealed that while many participants improved with the Veggie protocol and hormone balancing, some showed no change or even worsened symptoms. It was a humbling reminder of the individual variability inherent in biology. Instead of retreating, Anna and her team doubled down on personalized approaches, emphasizing the importance of listening to one's body and adapting interventions. Anna also encountered doubts in her personal life. Rachel, her close friend, began struggling with her own nighttime symptoms despite following the protocol faithfully. Watching Rachel's frustration mirrored Anna's own past pain, stirring guilt and helplessness. It reinforced that no single solution fit all, that healing was a winding road with unexpected turns. Through these shadows, Anna found new clarity. Doubt wasn't the enemy but a guide, pushing her to deepen her knowledge, refine her approach, and nurture empathy. She recommitted to her mission, not to promise cures but to share honest experiences, evidence-based tools, and a community of support. One evening, after a long day of meetings and messages, Anna sat on her balcony, watching the city lights flicker against the night sky. The urgency that once dominated her nights had softened into a quiet companion, sometimes still present but no longer ruling her. She thought about the women who trusted her, about the work ahead, and about herself, a woman who had transformed her struggle into purpose. In that moment, she understood that the shadows of doubt were part of the journey, not a detour from it. They were the quiet proof that she was growing, learning, and moving forward. And with that acceptance came a new kind of peace. The summer sun spilled warmth across Anna's kitchen as she chopped fresh asparagus, the vibrant green stalks reminding her of how far she'd come since those early, sleepless nights. Each slice was deliberate, a small act of self-care woven into a larger tapestry of healing. New horizons were opening, not just in her health but in her understanding of what was possible when science, community, and hope converged. After the shadows of doubt, Anna felt a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. The pilot study with Dr. Shah was entering its next phase, now including a broader group of women with diverse backgrounds and symptoms. The data was more robust, revealing fascinating nuances about how hormonal rhythms and dietary patterns interacted with bladder function. One surprising discovery was the role of gut health, a factor Anna hadn't initially prioritized. Emerging research showed that the microbiome influenced inflammation and nervous system regulation, both critical in nocturia. Inspired, Anna began incorporating fermented foods like sauerkraut and kimchi into her meals, noting subtle improvements in digestion and sleep. She shared these insights with her community, encouraging experimentation with gut-friendly foods alongside the Elon Musk Veggie protocol. Meanwhile, the Speak Your Night campaign was gaining traction. Anna had partnered with several women's health organizations to create educational webinars, breaking down myths and encouraging open conversations about urinary health. The stigma was slowly eroding as more voices joined the chorus. Anna was invited to speak at conferences and podcasts, her message resonating far beyond her initial circle. In her personal life, Anna rekindled relationships strained by her health struggles. With Rachel's support, she started a mindfulness meditation group focused on stress reduction and body awareness, tools essential in calming the nervous system and improving bladder control. The group became a sanctuary, a place of healing beyond physical symptoms. One evening, during a session under soft candlelight, Anna felt a deep connection, not just to the women around her but to herself. The nights that once held dread now felt like invitations to listen, to nurture, to grow. She realized her journey was not just about symptom management but about transformation, embracing vulnerability, cultivating resilience, and redefining what it meant to be well. This shift opened new horizons professionally as well. Anna began collaborating with nutritionists, physical therapists, and mental health experts to develop a comprehensive program addressing nocturia from multiple angles. The interdisciplinary approach was groundbreaking, challenging the fragmented care many women experienced. The program emphasized personalized assessment, dietary tweaks, stress management, and pelvic floor therapy, all tailored to individual needs. Anna saw this as the future of women's health care, holistic, integrative, and compassionate. She poured her energy into designing the curriculum, recruiting participants, and training coaches from her community, empowering women to become advocates for their own health. The feedback was inspiring. Women reported not just fewer nighttime bathroom trips but improved quality of life, renewed confidence, and stronger social connections. Anna's heart swelled knowing that her struggle had blossomed into a movement that uplifted others. Yet, new horizons also brought new challenges. Balancing her expanding work with self-care required vigilance. She learned to set boundaries, to say no when necessary, and to prioritize rest without guilt. The lessons she shared with others were ones she had to embody herself. One afternoon, after a long day of meetings, Anna found herself overwhelmed. She retreated to her balcony, breathing deeply as the city hummed below. In that stillness, she reaffirmed her commitment to authenticity, to being a guide who acknowledged both triumphs and trials. The journey was ongoing, marked by progress and setbacks alike. As the sun dipped below the skyline, Anna felt a surge of hope. New horizons were not destinations but continuums, spaces for endless learning and growth. And with each step forward, she was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing she was never alone. The sun had barely risen when Anna's phone buzzed with notifications from her community's group chat. Overnight, new members had joined, messages of gratitude and hope pouring in like a steady tide. The ripple effect she had hoped for was unfolding before her eyes, one story inspiring another, one small breakthrough creating waves of change. Anna smiled, remembering the early days when her nights were consumed by uncertainty and silence. Now, thousands of women were waking up to the possibility of reclaiming their lives from nocturia's grip. The ripple effect extended beyond symptom relief. Women were sharing how their improved sleep and confidence were transforming relationships, work, and mental health. Jessica from Ohio wrote about reconnecting with her teenage daughter after months of exhaustion had created distance. Maria in Texas shared how better sleep had rekindled her passion for painting, a hobby she had abandoned. Each story was a testament to how healing one aspect of life could set off a chain reaction, improving everything else. Anna realized this was the true power of community, not just sharing tips but nurturing hope and belonging. She recalled Mara's words about healing not being linear, and how every setback was a chance to deepen resilience. This wisdom had become the foundation of the support network they built together. Professionally, Anna's work was gaining recognition. Health podcasts invited her to discuss her approach, and she was asked to co-author an article in a prominent women's health journal about integrative strategies for nocturia. The article emphasized the importance of listening to patients' lived experiences alongside clinical data, a perspective Anna championed fiercely. One morning, she received an email from a leading urologist who praised the article and requested collaboration on a new study exploring diet and hormonal therapy's role in nocturia. Anna was both thrilled and humbled. Her voice was being heard in spaces once closed to women's health issues. The ripple effect was reaching the medical community itself. Meanwhile, Anna continued to nurture her community's growth. She organized virtual workshops with experts in nutrition, pelvic health, sleep medicine, and mental wellness. Attendance soared as women sought not just solutions but understanding. Anna's gentle guidance encouraged participants to embrace their unique journeys and find strength in shared vulnerability. One particularly moving workshop featured a pelvic floor physical therapist who explained how muscle tension and nerve sensitivity could contribute to nighttime urgency. Anna had personally benefited from these therapies and shared her story candidly, encouraging others to seek holistic care. The workshop sparked vibrant discussions, with women exchanging resources and creating local support groups. Anna watched the community evolve from a simple online forum into a multifaceted network of empowerment. Outside her digital world, the ripple effect touched her personal life too. Rachel, once frustrated by persistent symptoms, began leading mindfulness sessions, helping others manage anxiety that exacerbated nocturia. Elaine, whose relationship with her husband had deepened through openness, started a blog chronicling her healing journey. Anna found joy in witnessing these transformations, knowing her initial struggle had sparked a fire far beyond her own experience. Yet, the ripple effect was not without its challenges. As the community grew, so did the diversity of experiences, and Anna grappled with how to address conflicting advice or when professional help was needed. She learned to emphasize the importance of personalized care and encouraged women to advocate for themselves in medical settings. This balance between community wisdom and clinical guidance became a cornerstone of her message. One evening, after a long day of answering questions and moderating discussions, Anna paused to reflect. The ripple effect was no longer just about reducing nighttime bathroom trips, it was about reclaiming agency over health, breaking stigma, and building a future where women's voices mattered. It was about transforming pain into purpose and isolation into connection. As she prepared to share a new video titled, "Your Story Matters," Anna felt a surge of gratitude. The ripples she had started were becoming waves, and together, they were reshaping the narrative around women's health. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? She reminded her viewers, knowing that every story shared was a vital part of the ripple effect. The morning light filtered softly through Anna's bedroom window, but she didn't feel the usual warmth. Instead, a cold knot of anxiety twisted in her stomach as she reread the email from Dr. Shah. One of the study participants had reported a severe adverse reaction to the dietary changes, a sudden flare-up of bladder pain and inflammation. It was a rare but serious complication, and the research team was urgently reviewing protocols. Anna's heart pounded. This was the unexpected, the kind of setback that threatened to unravel months of progress. She had always known that healing wasn't linear, that each woman's body responded differently, but the reality was hard to face. The community would look to her for answers, for reassurance, and she felt unprepared. That day, she composed a message to the group, transparent and compassionate. She acknowledged the incident, emphasized the importance of consulting healthcare providers before making significant changes, and reminded everyone that individual care was paramount. The response was immediate and mixed. Some members expressed concern, others gratitude for the honesty. Anna realized that facing the unexpected wasn't just about managing crises but holding space for fear and uncertainty. Over the following weeks, the study's protocols were adjusted. Participants received more detailed screenings and personalized guidance. Anna worked closely with Dr. Shah and Mara to develop safety measures and educational materials about potential risks. The incident sparked deeper conversations about the complexity of health and the limits of one-size-fits-all solutions. It was a humbling reminder that progress came with responsibility and vigilance. Personally, Anna faced her own unexpected challenge when her mother was diagnosed with a chronic illness. The news shook her, stirring old fears of helplessness and loss. Balancing caregiving with her work became a delicate dance, testing her boundaries and resilience. Yet, through this, Anna found renewed purpose. Caring for her mother deepened her empathy for the women she supported and underscored the importance of community. She shared these struggles openly, modeling vulnerability and the reality of juggling multiple roles. As summer waned, Anna organized a virtual summit titled, "Navigating Uncertainty in Women's Health." Experts, patients, and advocates gathered to discuss how to face unexpected hurdles with grace and courage. The event was a beacon for many, offering practical tools and emotional support. Anna's keynote speech resonated deeply. Healing is a journey marked by detours and surprises. Facing the unexpected is not a failure but a testament to our strength and adaptability. The summit also highlighted emerging research into new therapies and technologies for nocturia, inspiring hope while grounding expectations in science. Anna felt proud of how far her community had come, united not just by shared symptoms but by a shared commitment to resilience. One night, after a particularly emotional caregiving day, Anna sat quietly, reflecting on the intertwining of personal and collective challenges. She understood that facing the unexpected meant embracing uncertainty as part of life's fabric. It was about moving forward, step by imperfect step, with courage, compassion, and connection. The journey was ongoing, the horizon still unfolding. And Anna was ready to meet whatever came next, anchored by the knowledge that she was never truly alone. Dawn broke softly over the city, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold as Anna stood by her kitchen window, cradling a warm cup of herbal tea. The gentle light felt symbolic, like the start of something fresh, a new chapter after the trials and shadows of the past months. The unexpected challenges, the doubts, the setbacks, they were all behind her now, or at least she hoped so. The work she had done, the community she had nurtured, and the knowledge they had gathered were beginning to coalesce into something powerful. A new dawn indeed. The latest phase of the pilot study was showing promising results. Participants were reporting sustained reductions in nighttime urination, improved sleep quality, and enhanced energy during the day. More importantly, the women's confidence in managing their health was growing, their voices growing louder in medical conversations that had long ignored them. Anna's comprehensive program combining the Elon Musk Veggie protocol with hormone balancing, gut health, and mindfulness was being recognized as a viable integrative approach. She found herself invited to present the findings at a major women's health conference in Chicago. Standing on the stage, facing hundreds of clinicians, researchers, and advocates, Anna felt a surge of gratitude and empowerment. This was not just her victory but a collective triumph. Her speech was heartfelt and inspiring. We've learned that healing is not about perfection but about persistence, about listening to our bodies and to each other. This is a new dawn for women's health, one where our stories matter and our solutions are holistic. After the conference, Anna was approached by several healthcare organizations interested in implementing her program in clinics across the country. She was humbled and energized by the opportunity to make a broader impact. Back home, Anna's community continued to thrive. Monthly virtual meetups evolved into local chapters where women gathered in person, sharing meals, laughter, and stories of transformation. The ripple effect she had envisioned was now a wave, spreading hope and healing in unexpected places. One such gathering in a small town outside Nashville brought Anna to tears. Listening to women describe how the program had restored their relationships, renewed their passions, and healed long-standing wounds reminded her why she had started this journey. She saw in their eyes the same determination that had carried her through dark nights. At home, Anna's personal life blossomed as well. She and Rachel rekindled their friendship with new depth and understanding. Together, they started a podcast called Night Light, where they interviewed experts and shared community stories, continuing to break stigma and build awareness. Anna also found time to nurture her own well-being. Morning walks through the park, quiet moments of journaling, and tending her small garden became rituals that grounded her in the present. These simple pleasures reminded her that healing was ongoing and holistic, encompassing body, mind, and spirit. One evening, Anna received a message from a young woman named Lily who had struggled with nocturia for years. Lily's words were filled with hope and gratitude. Anna's work had given her a path forward when she felt lost. This message was a powerful reminder of the ripple effect in action, how one person's courage to share their story could light the way for others. As Anna prepared for bed that night, she reflected on her journey. From the lonely nights filled with anxiety and pain to this new dawn of community, discovery, and impact, she had grown beyond what she imagined possible. The road ahead would still hold challenges, but she was ready to face them with resilience and grace. Life was full of surprises, but love, connection, and purpose would always lead the way. With a heart full of hope, Anna closed her eyes, embracing the promise of this new dawn and the bright future it signaled. The small community center buzzed with quiet energy as women from all walks of life gathered around tables scattered with notebooks, steaming mugs, and bowls of fresh vegetables. Anna looked around the room, feeling a deep sense of pride and fulfillment. This gathering was more than a meeting, it was a testament to the strength that grew when women united to face challenges together. The initiative she and Rachel had started, a local chapter of the Night Light community, was flourishing. Here, women shared not just their successes but their struggles, fears, and hopes. Stories flowed freely, breaking down walls built by years of stigma and silence surrounding women's urinary health. Anna had learned that strength was not about going it alone but about leaning into collective support. Each woman's voice added a vital thread to the tapestry of healing they were weaving. As the session began, Anna introduced the day's topic, holistic approaches to managing nighttime urination beyond diet and hormones. She invited a guest speaker, a physical therapist specializing in pelvic floor rehabilitation, who explained how muscle tension and posture affected bladder function. The room filled with curious questions and eager engagement. Women shared how the information resonated with their experiences and discussed strategies to incorporate movement and mindfulness into their routines. Anna noticed how the atmosphere had shifted, from one of isolation and shame to empowerment and camaraderie. After the workshop, Rachel led a guided meditation focused on relaxation and breathwork, techniques to soothe the nervous system and improve sleep quality. The women closed their eyes, sinking into the moment, releasing tension accumulated over years of discomfort and worry. When the meditation ended, a palpable calm lingered in the air. Later, during a break, Anna overheard a conversation between two new members. They spoke of how they had felt alone in their struggles, uncertain if anyone else understood. Now, they felt seen and supported. Anna's heart swelled. This was the ripple effect in motion, the simple yet profound impact of connection. Outside the center, the sun was setting, casting a warm glow that mirrored the light growing within the group. Anna thought about how far they had come, from her solitary nights plagued by nocturia to this vibrant community of women lifting each other up. The strength in unity was undeniable. That evening, back at home, Anna updated the community blog with reflections from the day. She emphasized the importance of embracing all aspects of health, physical, emotional, and social, in the healing journey. She encouraged readers to seek out or create their own support networks, reminding them that no one had to face nocturia alone. The response was immediate and heartfelt, with messages pouring in from women inspired to start local groups or reach out for help. Anna realized that this collective movement was shifting cultural narratives around women's health, challenging long-held taboos and promoting openness. Professionally, the network's growth attracted attention from healthcare providers interested in integrating community-based support with clinical care. Anna began consulting with clinics to develop programs that combined medical treatment with peer support and education. This holistic model promised better outcomes and greater patient satisfaction. Amid these successes, Anna remained grounded in the lessons learned from facing unexpected challenges. She knew setbacks could arise and that healing was rarely a straight path. But the strength they had built, rooted in empathy, knowledge, and unity, would sustain them through whatever came next. One night, as she prepared for a virtual meeting with community leaders across the country, Anna reflected on the journey from isolation to solidarity. She thought about the women whose voices had been silenced for too long and how together, they were rewriting the story. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough, she wrote in her message, knowing that the power of shared stories would continue to fuel the movement. The dawn was truly breaking, not just in the sky but in hearts and homes everywhere. And in that strength and unity, Anna found hope, purpose, and an unshakable belief in the healing power of connection. The cold wind rattled the windows of Anna's apartment as she sat at her desk, staring at the blinking cursor on her laptop. After months of progress and countless victories, a new challenge loomed, one that tested her resolve like never before. The clinical trial's next phase was approaching, promising the most rigorous testing yet of the integrative program she had helped develop. But with that came increased scrutiny, pressure, and the risk of exposure to unforeseen complications. Anna felt the weight of responsibility pressing down, not just for herself but for every woman who had placed their trust in her work. The stakes had never been higher. In the days leading up to the trial, Anna balanced preparations with moments of doubt. What if the results didn't meet expectations? What if some women experienced setbacks? The fear gnawed at her, threatening to undermine the hope she had cultivated. Yet, she also knew that growth required facing fears head-on, embracing uncertainty with courage. On the first day of the trial, Anna joined the team at the research center, greeting participants who carried a mix of excitement and apprehension. She listened to their stories, their reasons for joining, and their hopes for healing. Their determination fueled her own. As the weeks unfolded, the trial revealed a complex landscape. Some women experienced remarkable improvement, sleeping through the night for the first time in years. Others faced new hurdles. flare-ups, emotional challenges, or the frustration of slow progress. Anna remained a steady presence, offering support, encouragement, and a reminder that healing was a journey, not a destination. One participant, Carla, embodied this complexity. In her 40s and juggling a demanding career and family life, Carla had battled nocturia for over a decade. Early in the trial, she experienced setbacks that left her discouraged. But through the community and Anna's guidance, Carla found renewed strength. She shared her ups and downs openly, inspiring others to persist despite challenges. Midway through the trial, Anna encountered a personal crisis when her father suffered a stroke. The news shook her world, forcing her to balance caregiving with professional commitments. The experience deepened her empathy and reinforced the importance of self-care and community support. She leaned on Rachel and the network they had built, finding solace in shared strength. Despite the turmoil, the trial continued, gathering valuable data that highlighted both the promise and the complexity of integrative approaches to nocturia. The final analysis showed significant improvement in sleep quality and bladder function for the majority of participants, alongside enhanced emotional well-being. The results validated the program's holistic philosophy but also underscored the need for individualized care. At the trial's conclusion, Anna organized a celebratory event, honoring the courage of participants and the dedication of the team. The room was filled with laughter, tears, and stories of transformation. Anna felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This was not just a scientific milestone but a human one. In her closing remarks, she reflected on the final challenge they had faced together: healing is rarely easy or predictable. It demands resilience, patience, and hope. Today, we celebrate not just the outcomes but the journey, every setback, every triumph, and every moment in between. Together, we have shown that strength lies in unity and that healing is possible. As the event wound down, Anna felt the weight lift, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. The final challenge had tested her, but it had also affirmed her commitment to transforming women's health. She knew the journey would continue, with new challenges and new horizons. But for now, she allowed herself to savor the moment, the culmination of years of struggle, discovery, and connection. Outside, the night sky glittered with stars, each one a reminder that even in darkness, light could be found. And Anna was ready to keep shining. The quiet of Anna's study was a stark contrast to the whirlwind of the past few years. She sat at her desk, a journal open before her, the pages filled with reflections, notes, and heartfelt entries documenting her journey through struggle, discovery, and transformation. As she prepared to write the final chapter of her story, Anna felt a profound sense of closure and gratitude. The journey had been anything but easy, marked by sleepless nights, moments of despair, and unexpected detours, but it had also been filled with hope, growth, and deep connection. The first lesson she recorded was about resilience. Healing nocturia, she realized, was as much about mental strength as physical change. The countless nights spent navigating the discomfort and fear had forged a new kind of courage, one that embraced vulnerability and persistence in equal measure. This resilience was a lifeline for the women she had met, the community they had built, and the work she continued to pursue. Another crucial lesson was the power of community. Anna reflected on the transformation that occurred when women stopped suffering in silence and began sharing their stories. Connection fostered understanding, reduced stigma, and created a support system that amplified healing. The ripple effect she had dreamed of was real, spreading from individual lives to a collective movement reshaping women's health narratives. Anna also emphasized the importance of integrative care, how blending nutrition, hormonal balance, physical therapy, and mindfulness created a holistic approach that addressed the whole person. The Elon Musk Veggie protocol was just one piece of a larger puzzle. She learned that no single solution fit all and that personalized care was key to sustainable healing. Throughout her journal, Anna noted the significance of embracing uncertainty. Healing was rarely linear, and setbacks were not failures but opportunities to adapt and grow. This mindset shift was transformative, allowing women to move forward without being paralyzed by fear or perfectionism. Anna's relationship with her own body had evolved, from frustration and betrayal to partnership and respect. She described how mindfulness practices helped her tune into subtle signals, advocate for her needs, and cultivate compassion. This internal work was as vital as any external intervention. As she closed the journal, Anna felt a surge of hope for the future. The work was far from over, but the foundations were strong. She envisioned expanding education, fostering more community chapters, and collaborating with healthcare systems to embed integrative approaches into standard care. The story of Nocturia was changing, from one of isolation and resignation to one of empowerment and possibility. Before signing off, Anna drafted a message for her community, one that encapsulated the heart of the journey. Life is full of surprises, but love, connection, and purpose will always lead the way. No matter the challenges you face, remember you are not alone. Together, we can transform struggle into strength. As she sent the message, Anna felt the warmth of countless unseen connections. The stories, the courage, the shared humanity that had carried her through. The journey had taught her that while the path might be winding, the destination was brighter when traveled with others. And with that, Anna closed her eyes, ready to embrace whatever the future held, grounded in lessons learned and fueled by unwavering hope. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?